Students who have federal loans, the Trudeau government announcing Canadians won't have to begin repayment of those student loans until they're making at least $25,000 a year. Under the repayment assistance plan, students can also apply for reduced monthly payments or no payments at all, depending on their income levels and the size of their family. These new guidelines will take effect tomorrow, but of course, big implications for students. Let's bring in the national chairperson of the Canadian Federation of Students, Bilan. Arte. She is standing by in Ottawa. Great to have you on, Bill, and thanks for this today.
Thank you so much for having me.
So what does this mean now? Walk us through your reaction and what you're hearing from other students.
Absolutely. Well, the first thing that I'll mention is that this announcement isn't anything new at all. It's simply repackaging existing policy that was announced earlier this year in the federal government's first budget. And it actually comes at no surprise that this would be re-announced right when students are mass mobilizing across this country for free education on November 2nd, which is just this Wednesday. And this announcement actually does nothing to address the concerns that young people have been bringing up through this mass mobilization. It does nothing to address rising tuition fees. It does nothing to address the fact that young people are still owing close to $28,000 on average in student debt. And it does nothing to address the fact that the federal government still makes a profit off of the interest that is accrued on student debt. And so as you can see, this announcement isn't doing anything to actually address the crisis in access to post-secondary education, which is exactly why this Wednesday, students are still going to be going all out for free education.
So, based on what you're telling me, you don't think this is really anything at all for the government to be showcasing, and you would not consider it at all to be a break for student loan borrowers?
Absolutely, Todd. And I think, to further substantiate that, if you think about, this new threshold, simply upping that to $25,000 does nothing to actually address the fact that earning $25,000 a year is still well below the poverty line. It does nothing to address the reality that for too many graduates today, because of crushing amounts of student debt, we're not able to make the same investments in the economy that previous generations were able to make. We're not able to think about starting a family, buying a home, being innovative and starting our own enterprises or small businesses. All of these decisions are put to a halt very drastically for our generation because this government is doing nothing to address the root cause of student debt, which is high tuition fees. I think it's time for our federal government to take real leadership and ensure that we can eliminate tuition fees by actually proposing new spending towards access to post-secondary education. And that's why we're asking for free education this Wednesday on November 2nd.
Hey, I'm curious as well if you can give us a bit of context, Bill, and the idea of, the average, if you can, amount that a student actually has in terms of their debt when they graduate. Let's say they do a bachelor degree in Canada. What are they looking at once they graduate?
Well, average student debt levels that we're looking at are close to $28,000 per student. And this can change drastically if a student decides to pursue a degree that's like a master's degree or a PhD degree in education post the undergraduate level. And for a lot of young people, this doesn't include the amount that they've also had to take out through private debt, loans through credit cards or private banks, or even private loans they've had to take out through different sources. The reality is that as a generation, we're estimated to hold close to $28 billion in public student debt alone. That is a massive amount for this generation to be holding, and to continue to see inaction from government when it comes to actually proposing real change. I'll come back to it again. What we need is a completely universal system. We need to eliminate tuition fees up front and ensure that all of us, no matter which region in Canada we grew up in or how much money we come from within our families, are able to access an education. That's why students are going all out on November 2nd.
Very strong message, Bill, and thank you for coming on and giving us some food for thought today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Bilan Arte joining us from